What's up? What's up? What's up, y'all? We back. Wholesale Hardknocks. Bro, it's episode 20, bro.
We've been going ham, dog.
20, bro. It's really crazy. Like starting this off, I really didn't have an idea of how many people we would be impacting, and we're just getting started, bro. Like I get so many people that hit me up and they're like, yo, the stuff that we're learning on Wholesale Hardknocks and
You
stuff that
legit.
you're dropping is crazy. Bro, super grateful for you, bro. Super grateful for everybody who tunes in. Episode 20 is lit. So it's only right, bro, that I feel like the most value we gave out, the most value that people got from my experience, people reaching out to us and you telling me stories and stuff was sales training. Right? People got a lot of value out of that sales training. So it's only right that we double back and hit some more sales training, bro. You gonna talk about what we doing today, though?
Sales training, I had so many people be like, yo, that was crazy.
Yeah.
That was one of the most valuable videos on YouTube I've ever watched. I like literally people were saying that. One person actually said he listened to the sales training 2 days later, utilized like 2 or 3 things that was in the sales training that we did and got a contract.
Nah, that's crazy.
That's dope, bro. But like, shout out to Pace and all of our mentors, bro.
For sure.
Like, they're the goats.
We definitely need to get that guy up here who got a deal from our sales training. Who is that?
That is a fact.
Let's bring him up here.
I have to go back in my DMs.
Yeah, let's do it. Bro, so what we got today?
So today we're doing sales training part 2. One of the biggest things we're going to go over today is handling objections and situations, and how to maneuver around them. There's like so many different things, right? But I think it's important to start from the jump. So, in your opinion, Daryll, in the beginning of a call, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where could some people get stuck? Like right away.
People get stuck, first of all, before they even call. First of all, like people, they're doing research, they're looking up properties, they're comping, they're doing all this stuff before the call even begins, right? When, bro, just call. You do all this stuff, all this comping, all this research, and tell them, man, I pick up the phone, right? But the next thing that I've been seeing a lot of people get caught up on is the introduction. How do I come in and like just having a smooth, confident introduction, and kind of what it's going to lead into what we're talking about today, right? If you're confident, extremely confident on your introduction, and in general, just pouring out in confidence, that eliminates like half of your objections right there. Right? You're not going to get as many objections. We're not going to get as many objections as somebody who's newer, because just off of our confidence alone, when we're speaking to somebody else on the phone, we're building that credibility. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for, though.
Yeah, no, actually, I love that, especially in the beginning, because people will like, you'll send, like, let's just say we're on the nightly dial or something like that, and the people are so stressed. Like, these people are calling legitimate leads, right? And people are stressed because they don't have the notes. All they have is a name, phone number, and an address.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but who did they talk to? Like, what do the notes say? What's going on with the lead? It's like, yo, don't even worry about it. Just hop on the phone with the seller and start talking.
Right. Just have a conversation.
Here's what I tell my team, right? Going into a phone call, pretend like you're calling your friend to maybe go out to dinner or go on vacation or something like that. So that, like, think about it. If I call Daryll, I'm not calling Daryll like, hey, what's up, bro? You want to go out to grab some food or grab a drink?
Like, bro, my whole goal is for the seller to think that we're friends already when we get on the phone.
Exactly, right. Exactly. So that's the main thing. Like, the seller's wall goes down ASAP when you get on the phone and they already think, wait, do I know this person? I must know this person. He sounds super confident, or I must have like talked to him before or something, right? So going in, like Daryll said, super confident, puts the seller's wall down ASAP.
Yep.
So I like that.
Most of the times. most of the times. You
Mm-hmm.
may still get some pushback from some other types of sellers, but most of the times, confidence. You come in confident, and you say anything with confidence. You ask any questions with confidence. You expect to get the answers right. You're gonna eliminate half of the objections from the jump.
100%. So then going into it, let's talk about when the seller's confused who's calling.
Oh, yeah. So I tell you one, like, it's easy, right? Your introduction should be, you acknowledge the seller. One, a lot of people don't even say the seller's names, right? Like, people love their names, right? Say their name, right? So number one, acknowledge the seller. Two, introduce yourself, right? Tell them who you are. You don't have to tell them what company. If you can tell them a company if you want, but just tell them who you are, right? And then tell them why you're calling. Hey, Mike, this is Daryll calling you about this property on Main Street that you're looking to sell.
That's it.
It's that simple.
It could be so simple.
Yeah.
And if
And
it sounds confident and like it doesn't sound salesy or scammy or anything like that, they're going to have the conversation.
exactly. And do you notice what I did as well? I assume that you're looking to sell, right? I see a lot of people, they call and they're like, yeah, are you still looking to sell? Are you still interested in selling this house, or are you interested in selling your house at Main Street? That's, a lot of people create objections, bro.
Yes.
That you create objections. My whole thing is I want to eliminate objections before they come. And a lot of people, you guys are creating objections. And I used to do it myself. We used to create objections for ourselves, right? So things like, in the introduction, do you have 5 minutes, right? Can I ask you a few questions? Are you still interested in selling? You're giving somebody the opportunity to say no, right? And no is just an objection. In sales, no is just an objection, right? You can overcome any no, but if you're giving people a reason to say no, then you're doing yourself a disservice, right? If somebody picks up the phone, I'm assuming that they have time. I know I don't pick up the phone when I don't have time. If I'm
Exactly.
busy, right? And if you're not looking to sell, and I assume that you're looking to sell, you'll just tell me, no, I'm not looking to sell this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what changed? Right.
Mm-hmm. And just assume that something changed.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, especially in this business, dude, they're talking to like 10, 20 people. And if they say that they're not, they're capping.
Yeah.
Like a straight cap. They're talking to multiple investors. That's the business. That's if you have skip traced their phone number from a list, I promise you they have talked to other investors before.
For sure.
You know? So now you just got to stand out and be a little bit different. But so I love that what you said, right? Because people will be like, yeah, you spoke to my assistant about this property on 123 Main Street. Are you still looking to sell it? Boom, they just created 2 objections for themselves already.
Who's your assistant?
Yeah.
No, I'm not looking to sell.
Right. Who's your assistant? And I don't know if I'm looking to sell or not.
Right.
So who's your assistant? Just breeze by it. Somebody on my team. But anyways, you looking to sell the property?
Yep.
Now you got to overcome the next one. I don't know if I'm looking to sell the property or yeah, I'm probably not looking to sell anymore. Then hit it with what?
What changed?
What changed?
Anytime somebody tells you that they're not looking to sell, I always ask that question, what changed? And a good point that you just brought up, bro, was ignore those objections, right? Like, you don't have to. I see a lot of people feel like they have to explain themselves to sellers and over talk and start just over explaining, and you end up becoming a machine gun, right? Like, for no reason. And there's a lot of things that we do not have to answer, right? Like, if somebody asks me in the beginning of a call, what's your offer or something like that, or just like you said, like, who's your assistant, right? I'm ignoring that. I can't really see here. I mean, are you even interested are you even looking to sell at all? If if you're not, we don't have to talk. Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're like, no, I'm looking to sell. I'm looking to sell. Okay, perfect. And then you get it.
It's just ignoring it and going on to the next thing.
The most important part of that, right? Anytime you ever overcome an objection, you need to ask a question after. right? Otherwise, if you end with a statement, it's either just going to be an awkward silence, or you're giving them the opportunity to ask you another question, give you another objection,
What does
right?
that do, bro? Once you who who is in control?
The person asking the questions.
Right.
So if I'm asking you questions the whole time and you're just answering the questions and you're just continuing to talk and talk and talk, I'm controlling this conversation. I'm taking you to where I want to lead you to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my questions are obviously calculated, right? I'm looking to figure out what's going on, right? Why are you looking to sell this? Like what's the story, right? And how can I help? Those are the questions that I'm directing it to, right? And then at the end of the call, right? Like you're I tell my team all the time, when you overcome objections, the question that you ask should always be to, like we were saying, move that conversation forward, right? So depending on where you're at in the call, if you're in the beginning of the call and you get an objection right away, I mean, are you even looking to sell this thing, right? If you get something like towards an objection towards the end of the call and you overcome it, right? My question that I'm going to ask is going to be, okay, if this works, what's the next step? You know what I'm saying? Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
100%.
All right. So depending on where you're at in the conversation, the question you want to ask after you overcome the objection, it's always supposed to move that conversation forward, right? Get off this topic that we're on right now and get on to something else.
Yeah, I love that, bro. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'm gonna stop saying ignore the objection.
Yeah.
Because actually, now that I'm thinking, it's kind of disrespectful. So hint at it,
Yeah.
maybe like say a one like little one liner towards it, and then
Right.
ask a question so that you are now back in control. Because when the seller starts hitting you with objections, they're in control of the conversation. You know?
Exactly. But here's the thing, though. There are times where you do have to just ignore objections, right? Where you just don't say anything at all, right? Like,
Mhm.
I would say I was always taught we treat objections like complaints, right?
Mhm.
And you literally just sidestep it, get past it, get past the complaint, and solve the problem, right? So it's like kind of like a little net, right? Like get off me, right?
Yeah, like my thing would be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So boom, boom, boom.
right. So in the other day during one of the role play sessions in closest training camp, right? We were doing we were doing a role play, right? And I was showing them what it would look like if I was a buyer, right? So um, I told the guy who was my seller to give me as many objections as you can in the beginning and watch how I overcome them, right? He asked me, "What's your offer?" Like right in the beginning of the call. He's like, "Yeah, what's your offer?" And I literally just ignored it, bro. Like I just kept talking. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? Calling about this property on Main Street that you're looking to sell." He's like, "All right, what's your offer?" I'm like, "You spoke with somebody on my team about selling this property. Wanted to give you a call, confirm some of the notes that I have, ask you a few
Yeah.
questions to see if we're a good fit. How's that sound?" He's like, "All right, cool." Right. And by then, like I'm controlling the conversation, right? I just acted like I didn't hear him. And
Mhm.
he didn't ask it again until late to like the end of the call. Right. So like there's times where if you're in a flow, you can just ignore that objection. And it's
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
In the right times, you know what it really is? What it boils down to is emotional intelligence.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like
Yes.
when you have emotional intelligence, you'll know whether or not you can just completely ignore it and not say anything, or at least say a one liner and then follow up with a question. Because
Yes.
some people it will truly offend them. And you got to have emotional intelligence, which means you got to understand their personality type and who
Boom.
they are as a person. Because if you don't, and you don't handle that, and it's something that they're truly, truly like they need in order to push the sale forward, then you have to bring it up. But you have to have emotional intelligence to even know that. Can you
Bro.
touch on what
Good.
emotional intelligence is?
Yes. Real quick.
Mhm.
Did Felipe and Karen, did they tell you what the first thing I had them do was when they came into closest
Mhm.
training camp? I had them take a disc personality
Oh
test.
yeah, yeah, they did say that.
Yeah, I had them take a disc test and learn all about personality traits.
Hmm.
Right. And we talked about personality traits, how to have these conversations with people, how these other people are thinking, right? And how they navigate their conversations and how they take information. Right. So that's big, bro. emotional intelligence is pretty much having that empathy, right? Understanding that person's situation, understanding where they're at, how they're feeling, right? And if you can, like, there's certain things you can get away with, right? Like you can say certain things based on somebody's emotions, right? And there's other things that you just wouldn't say at all based on how that other person's feeling, right? So it's all about, it's really empathy, right? Chris Voss calls it tactical empathy, right? Just tactically understanding that what it's like in that other person's shoes, right?
You know what it would be? It would be disrespectful for you not to do that.
Yeah,
It would
for
be
sure,
irresponsible for you to just disregard who the person is as a person that you're talking to.
sure, for sure. It's like, so when you're talking to a red seller, right? And you know, a red seller, they want it fast. They want their information fast. They don't want to worry about the problems. They come to me with solutions, right? Don't tell me the story, tell me what's going on, tell me the solution. Let's get to it, right? Now if you come in here and you tell me a whole story, you're mumbling, you're fumbling up on your words, you're taking too long, that other person is going to find it disrespectful. They're going to hang up on you, or they're going to walk away, right? Now if you're like that with the yellow person, they may be more understanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? They may be more understanding, and you'll get that your message across a lot better with them. So it's all about knowing who you're talking to, that person. And it's not just sales, bro. That's everyday conversation. That's life. Like that help with your relationships. With
Everyday life is sales.
That's very true. I was thinking that as I was saying that every conversation
Mhm.
is a sale.
It is sales. That's it. Whether you're at the gas station, whether you're hanging out with your wife or whatever, like it's all sales. So I guess that's kind of one category. One category of handling objections is to just ignore them
Yeah,
in the right situation,
yeah,
right? So if you're emotional intelligent enough to know that ignoring that objection or complaint in that specific situation is not going to be detrimental to the call, is not going to be detrimental to your relationship with the seller. If you know that, hey, I'm emotional intelligent enough to know that I can kind of just ignore this and go on to the next thing without offending them, then ignore it. That's actually the first thing that should be on your mind whenever
right.
they come up with an objection. Is it okay for me right now to ignore this objection? If it is, then hell yeah, every single freaking time, ignore it. But let's talk about some things where you might have to come up with some rebuttals.
Real quick, another thing as well. What I do, I never make sense of the seller's argument, right? And what they're trying to tell me is true, right? Even if this is something I took out of Grant Cardone's book, right? He's like, even if what they're saying is 1,000% correct, he's like, I never agree. He's like, never. Now I don't go that extreme, right? But there's a lot of things that, like, it just doesn't make sense to me, right? So we're dealing with a situation right now where Andrew on the team, he's working with a lady, she agreed to a price, right? And we're like, okay, we're gonna send the contract out. She's like, I want to print it out so I could read it and go over it. I'm like, for what? Like, what do you want to print it out for? Right? Like he keeps telling me like I'm gonna send this to her and she's gonna print it out. I'm like, for what? Right? Like if we send this to her, she prints it out, Mike. In your experience, is she gonna sign that right then and there? If she gets it and prints it out?
Hell no.
Nah.
That happened to us probably like a month or two ago.
Right. So she keeps saying like, oh, like I have to do this, I have to do that. I have a partner that needs to look at it, right? And Andrew's like, yo, I think I really need to send this contract so she can print it out or she's not gonna sign. I'm like, bro, no, stand your ground. That's just an objection. I don't know what she's objecting. There's something going on, but that's just an objection. There's something that she does not like, that she's not comfortable with, right? So I'm like, stand your ground. I'm like, tell them that you cannot, you will get fired if you send this contract out and it doesn't get signed. I literally told him to say that, and he said it. And the lady's like, okay, well, let me just talk to my brother and figure out if the price makes sense, and we can get on the call early next week, right? So we overcame that. The objection is her brother, right? Her brother. They don't know if it's a if it's a good deal or not yet, right? So it doesn't have anything to do with our paperwork. If we would have sent that out, she would have just been another pile. The contract would have just been in a pile of contracts that other investors have been selling her, right? So overcoming objections also comes with not. It helps when you don't make sense of that other person's argument. Otherwise, you're just gonna go with what the hell they're saying and where they're trying to lead you. You know.
And in that situation, right? Like, it wouldn't make sense to send the contract. Why? Because now the seller is back in control.
Exactly.
Not even back in control. They should never be in control. Now, but they're in control, right? Like, they have the contract now. They're probably going to tell you, I'm going to call you back in a couple of days after da 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 da, or give me a call in a few days or something after I send this out to my attorney or whatever the case is. Why don't we hop on the phone with your attorney? Why don't you go talk to your brother about everything that we talked about, and on Monday we all hop on the phone?
Yep.
You know, now you're back in control. You're the one giving the homework. So you always want, like, on every single one of my calls, I always am giving the seller homework, like, at the end of it.
Yeah.
Even if it's like a 6-month follow-up. Like, hey, you know, maybe why don't we do this? Why don't you and your husband talk a little bit about this over the next few months? Maybe you guys clean the property out and move some stuff out of the house, and we'll have another conversation in 3 months to see if you guys are ready to sell then. Not, is it okay if I give you a call back in 3 months?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right? I'm not saying something like that, because then what's the next call? Because you have to go in again.
Exactly.
Hey, just checking in. You ready to sell your house yet? Nah, bro.
That's not it.
Hey, how did the conversation go with you and your husband for the past few months about selling? We spoke a few months ago about you and your husband talking about selling the house, and I was just seeing what that conversation looked like between you two and where you guys are at. That's a little bit more easy follow-up, and she remembers the conversation from before. Now you're a familiar face. This is how you get deals, bro. You gotta you gotta be sticky.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
They gotta remember you, bro. 100%. Speaking of what you were just saying, though, like, this isn't talking about objections, but this is about controlling the conversation. And when you were talking about, like, you always give them homework, it kind of made me realize, like, how petty I am in situations like that. Like, if somebody's like, if they're like, no, all right, well, if we talk, like, say we talk terms, right? And they're like, oh, we got to think about it, right? Like, I mean, it sounds good. We got to think about it. Bro, every call, I make sure I end up saying, yeah, honestly, I don't even know if this is a deal for me yet, right? Like, I still got to run the numbers, right? Like, there's times where I even tell them, I know this is the best situation for you. Like, I know this is a deal. I know nobody could come up to your price. I just need to make sure this even makes sense for me, right? So I always put myself in a position to where I could be the one that says no, right? I don't want them to come back and be like, oh, we thought about it and we don't like it, right? Mm-hmm. I want to be the one that says, oh, I want it back and I ran my numbers and that just doesn't work. We need to be here, right?
Yeah, you give yourself homework.
Exactly. I give myself homework and I give them
homework. Yo, grade school's over, dog. Ain't nobody giving me homework no more. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'll give myself some homework if it makes sense in the call, but I'm the teacher, bro. I want to be giving the homework out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I gotta go grade papers. So that's my homework, right? But yo, in my class, you get homework every day, B.
For sure.
But if we want to get back into objections, I think one major thing I wanted to go over was price. Like, when the seller is so adamant about not giving their price up.
Yeah.
So when that happens, what's your main thing that you usually fall back on?
So my go-to, right, and this is like last resort, right? Like, I usually try to I most of the times I get priced out first, right? Mm-hmm. Now the main one, right? This is the main one that I'll do, and then I'll tell you, like, last resort, like last stand type shit. So I'll say, somebody asks me my price, I'll say, I'll be like, I don't know yet, right? Like, I really don't know. It's kind of just slid across my desk. Now, if I if I bought this property, right, came in, fixed it up, made it 2022 standards, what do you think I could sell this for on the open market after it's all fixed up?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now we'll start talking about, like, I'll start painting the picture on what I'm looking to do. And then they'll tell me what they'll think it could sell for, like all fixed up. I'm like, okay, have houses been selling in the area like that? Right. And we'll literally go down this path, right? And I'll ask him if he's seen the houses in the area that have sold for what price he told me that this house could sell for. Right. So now what am I doing? I'm getting the seller engaged. Right. He feels like he's my partner now because I'm asking him questions about what it's going to look like after I fix it up. Like, he's pretty much writing my plans for me. So I'm like, okay, so after I fix this up, how much could I sell it for on the market? 300,000. Okay, nice. Okay, I actually see this property on 127 Main Street that sold for 300,000. Looks nice. I see the pictures here. Did you see those pictures on Zillow? It looks beautiful, right? How does your house look compared to that? Right. And then they'll start telling me a little bit about the condition. Right. And then I'll just ask him the price. Like, well, I'll get him talking about it, and then I'll just ask him the price again, and then he'll tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I got him talking. I got him engaged right now, and just being like, okay, so, you know, what do you want for it? What do you want for this? Like, if your house is in this condition, you see it's all fixed, houses all fixed up are in this condition, what would you take for your property in its current condition right now? Right. And well, I'll just get him off of price and then take him down where I wanted to take him. And then once I ask him price, um, they usually give it to me. Right. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm on like last stand, and I try not to say this because this is easy. This is the easy way to get the price. So I'll just say, like, look, man, like, you're kind of putting me in the box here. Like, I'm swinging in the dark, right? Like, if you're asking me to just throw you out a price, I'm an investor, right? It's my job to get the best possible price for this property. Now, if you don't want to tell me where you would be at and at least, like, give us a ballpark range, then I can come back and definitely give you a low number. I'm not sure if that's what you want. Right. And then they usually tell me, oh, well, I'm looking for 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Think about that. I was just putting myself in the seller's position in that regards, right? And I'm like, dang, wait. If he gives me an offer of like 100,000, I want 200,000. I got a lot of negotiating to do,
Exactly.
right? Because the sellers know, they know the game. They know that it's going to go back and forth, and you're going to have to like run back to your partner and figure out the numbers, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
they know it's a negotiation.
Right.
So
And you got to be smooth with it, right? Like, when you're talking about price, this is when you need to be like extremely smooth. Like, I remember one time, bro, I had a call. It was crazy because this guy, he owns a dealership, right? He owned a dealership. He kept every single time we got on the call, he's like, oh, I got a customer coming in, blah blah blah. He kept talking about this dealership, whatever, right? So he asked me, we're going back and forth on price, right? I'm like, well, what's your price? He's like, well, give me an offer. I'm like, just keep going back and forth. Right. I'm like, all right, you're a car guy, right? I said, would you ever put one of those cars in the lot without a sticker with a price tag on the front windshield? And he's like, you're absolutely right. And he's like, no, I wouldn't. I'm like, well, why would you do that with the house? He's like, you're absolutely right. But, like, price is one of the things where you just got to be extremely smooth and extremely confident. And if you're following your sales structure and you're controlling this conversation, you should be the one that's asking price. And when you ask for it in a confident way, they should give it to you. Right.
100%.
Yeah.
In a case where they don't, like they might be a master negotiator too. I
Exactly.
love what you said. I like the first thing, that's my go-to always, getting them to tell me what their numbers are, like
Yeah.
what they think the property is all fixed up. One way that I actually go about this a lot of the times is I just assume that they're already talking to their realtor.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, hey, what did your realtor say about this deal?
Yeah. I like that.
And they're gonna say, "Oh, the realtor said we can get like 300,000 for the property." I'm like, "Okay, great." So, I mean, I actually kind of agree with your realtor. I think the property's somewhere around that number. What do you think you'd have to do in order to get it up to speed for 300?
Mm.
And then they say, "Oh, I got to redo the roof and this and that and the other." Okay, now I start like itemizing everything,
Breaking it down. Yeah.
right? And I get the seller, just like Daryl said, to essentially be my partner in the deal. and realize how much that property really needs for work, for one. But the main thing, right, is to really get the seller to understand what their raw net number is in their pocket. That's what I always try to get. When I get into numbers, I'm always going like, what's the raw net number in your pocket, so that they're not stuck on like a ask price, like a crazy realtor ask price. You see what I'm saying? Because that's the sexy number. But the real number that matters to them is the number that is net in their pocket. And then I start talking about like asking about what they need that money for. That raw
Oh, that's my
net.
favorite. Oh, yes.
it's
Yes.
it's amazing. So you're starting to figure out what they need this money for, right? And you start breaking those numbers down. So literally, I went on an appointment probably a month and a half ago. Property that we'll be closing on probably here in the next like 2 weeks. I go on the appointment. Lady wanted $500,000 for her house.
Mm-hmm.
I came back and I ended up offering like 475 or something like that. Went back to my car, talked to my partner, came back with the offer of 475. She didn't accept. So we're just sitting there, and I'll sit there for like 5 minutes in dead silence. Just, all right, well, I don't think I can go back to him and get him any higher. What are your plans? And we just sat there in silence for a solid like 2 minutes. Till I literally got my iPad up, right? I'm like, okay, well, let's figure this out. Literally, by this point, bro, like 97% of salespeople would have just chalked it up as an L.
For sure.
Literally would have chalked it up as an L. So this is crazy. Remember, my offer was like 475. She said no.
Right.
I said, let's break this down. By the way, 475 on like a novation deal. And I don't even think it would have been a deal. We would have been kind of screwed. So here's what happened. I go and I start breaking down what she needs the money for. She needs the money for a down payment on another house. She has disability, so she needs like some specific things for the house, and she's breaking down all the numbers and how much money she actually needs raw in her pocket. Right? After I break this down, I then ask her what the mortgage is. How much do you owe on the mortgage?
Yep.
I add the mortgage number up to the number that we came up with, her raw net number in her pocket. It ended up being $450,000, which ended up actually working for us on a cash deal.
Oh, I like it.
We found a buyer for 465.
I like it.
So after that, literally, I was just like, why don't we just buy your house for 450 outright? Like, you're going to get all the money that you need if we do this, and it's guaranteed. And I ended up getting the deal at 450 because we legit just broke down all the real raw numbers, like their life, because they're fixated on some bullshit fictitious number, right? Of what they think their property's worth. But what do they need, and what do they need it for?
Exactly. Bro, want and need are two completely different things. I tell my team all the time, when you're asking that question, because we go into the same exact thing, right? It's like whenever somebody on my team, they hate me, bro. They come to me, they're like, yo, this seller, she wants $80,000 down. I'm like, okay, why?
Why?
For what? They're like, well, I didn't ask that. What do you mean you didn't ask that? This guy, Jack Miller, right? Rest in peace, Jack Miller. He's a creative finance like guru, right? One thing he would say, and this guy, he's an asshole, but he's a master negotiator, right? He would say, "This is my money," and he would say this to sellers. He's like, "This is my money. I need to know what you're doing with this money. If you're gonna go buy drugs, I need to know this."
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
I'm not gonna just give you this money without knowing what you're going to do with it, right? Now it's super important, right? So like, I want to hit on two things that you said, right? The first thing, I'm gonna hit this first, kind of deviate to that first, but the first thing was it reminded me another way that I get the price is going through figuring out what other offers they had as well. So, like you said, everybody's talking to other investors, right? There's no super niche list, right? We're all calling the same people, right? We're all talking to the same people. Um, Now, I just assume again, I assume that they've been talking to these people, and I ask them, well, what other offers have you been getting, right? Or how have the other investors been treating you? Where the other offers been coming in at, right? Whatever. Ask that question, and they'll tell you. If you ask it confidently, they'll tell you, right? Oh, they've been coming in at 150, 100. Okay, what didn't you like about that? Right now we know what he doesn't like. Now tell me what you want. Tell me what you like. Tell me what would make sense, right? Um, Now the second point, bro, knowing why they need this money is super, super, super crucial, bro. We're working this deal, and I talked about it last night on the nightly dial briefly, right? But this is one that I've been working on. This is an Airbnb in Riverdale. It's gonna be an Airbnb in Riverdale. Taking it over sub two. Was originally gonna do a cash out refi, but the seller had some issues with his credit, right? He's a doctor, so I was always confused why his credit was like really weird. But we kept getting denied. We kept getting like high rates, right? So I wanted to pivot a few weeks ago, and we want to do a Morby method deal, right? So if you guys don't know what a Morby method is, so the original deal, cash out refi, the seller was going to go to my lender, get a loan, a refinance out in his name, and I was going to take over those payments subject to, right, and take over those payments, make those payments on his behalf. Since his interest rates were super high, since his credit was bad, we had to do a Morby method, right? So I brought on a credit partner who actually had good credit. They were going to get the loan in their name, and then he was going to get less money up front, right? So it went from him ended up getting like he was going to end up getting like 60K up front to now he's getting like I need to get him to accept like 5,000 up front and a silent second position because the deal is completely different now, right? So he's like, no, like I can't do that. Like I need this money, right? And I'm like, can you keep? He's like, I need 30. I'm like, what's the lowest you would take? He's like 35,000. I'm like, well, I'm at 5. Like we're not even close, right? What do you need $35,000 for? He's like, well, my ex-wife took my credit card and charged off $35,000. I owe $35,000 to Bank of America.
She went
Right,
crazy at Saks Fifth.
went crazy, right? So that's one why the cash out refi wasn't working, and that's two why he needs such a big down payment, right? He's like, if I can't get 35,000, there's no point in us doing a deal. I'm like, okay, well, what if I brought somebody to you who is a credit repair specialist and knows how to get that $35,000 off your credit, and you don't have to pay a dollar. You just have to pay him maybe like $1,000, $2,000. Matter of fact, I will pay him that money, right? If I can get that totally wiped off your credit, will you take a lower down payment? He's like, dude, I will take $0 down. In fact, I will go get. He's like, bro. In fact, I would go back to our original deal and do a refinance for you so you could take it over.
Yo, it would be so disrespectful and irresponsible of you not to figure that information out, bro. Like if you're a car salesman, it's super irresponsible and disrespectful to not figure out what the heck your customer is using the car for.
Exactly.
Are they going to drive Uber? Do they need a pickup truck because they're in construction? Do they need a freaking work van because they're a painter? Like, yo, come on.
Is this for their freaking 16-year-old daughter, right? That needs safety benefits. So like when you're freaking say you come to the store I'm the salesman, right? And I just start pitching you on this freaking Ferrari that goes 180 miles an hour, can drift and do all this cool stuff.
Yeah, my daughter doesn't need that, bro.
Right. And I never asked buying this car. Like who's driving this car? So super important. You need to figure out the whole story. You need to figure out the whole story. I the way my mind works, like, and I've been thinking about this since I've first started. This is how I've been like thinking about like houses and like these situations, right? I think of every house as like a book, bro. And every owner gets to write their own chapters of that book, right? So when I'm talking to this person, I want to figure out their whole story, the whole thing the whole chapter, right? Of what was going on while they're owning this house, you know?
Yeah, bro. That's it.
Hell yeah.
And actually, you avoid objections when you figure out the story. Does that make
For
sense?
sure. For sure.
Like we're talking about objections here, but there are so many ways to avoid objections, to actually never even handle them. I put out a video earlier this week on Instagram where I said, you'll notice really good salespeople don't even run into a lot of objections because they
Yep.
handle them in the beginning. So I was just thinking about, what are some other objections that you could run into? And I was thinking about, hey, I need to go talk to my wife, or I need to run this by my attorney, or I need to go talk to my realtor or something like that, right?
Well, that's easy.
Super easy. What do you got?
So I actually learned. So this wasn't easy a few months ago, right? When I went on that the RJ Bates podcast, I got hit with the wife objection, right? And I didn't even know it was an objection until I had somebody tell me, "Yo, that's just an objection," right? I was like, "Damn." I just been taking that because I've been getting that from everybody, right? I gotta go talk to my wife. I gotta go talk to my husband. Blah blah blah, right? So how I like to overcome that objection is I like to bring them back to the future, right? So I'll say, okay, great. 100%, I get it. I wouldn't imagine making a decision without bringing my wife in either, right? I don't have a wife, but I wouldn't imagine, right? I wouldn't imagine making a decision without bringing my wife in the conversation either, right?
Mm-hmm.
But real quick, right? Let's imagine that you already had. Let's imagine like you already had this conversation with her, right? At dinner, you guys spoke tonight. You guys talked about everything we talked about, and let's say she hated it. Let's say she doesn't like the deal at all. How do you feel about this?
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that, bro.
Yeah.
That's painting the picture. That's badass.
Sometimes I switch it up. Sometimes I say what let's say she loves it. Let's say she
Mm-hmm.
loves the deal. How do you feel about it? Right.
Right.
I want my whole objective is I want to get your thoughts. I want to get how you feel, right? How you actually feel. Um, but the way the way you overcome this objection is the way you by preventing this objection is by having a sales system and
Mm-hmm.
figuring out who all the decision makers are before you get into your offer, right? Because if you don't, right, if you don't ask, is there anybody else that's going to be helping you make this decision, right? They're literally
They're gonna hit you with that, and they don't really need to talk to their wife or talk to
right.
their attorney, whatever the case is. It's just like I would probably say maybe 85% of the time they're lying.
Exactly.
Maybe sometimes they got to go run it by their attorney or something like that. They're one of those people that literally don't do anything without their attorney. Makes sense.
I'll say
One
a
thing
two
I
out
like,
of 10 need to actually talk to an attorney, bro.
facts, probably more, right? So one thing I'd like to add to yours is how do you think that conversation is going to go?
I like that.
Actually, I agree. You should probably go talk to your wife. Like you said, I wouldn't do anything without my wife.
Yeah,
um, how do you think that conversation is going to go?
I like that.
Okay. Well, what are the outcomes here? What could happen, and what happens after that happens?
I
I
like
love
that.
it, bro.
I like that.
So to be
Oh,
honest,
real quick though, like attacking that. I was on a call the other day with the realtor, right? And he almost got mad at me because I was in my decision step, right? But what I did was and because I like to try new things on the phone, right? So like every time I'm talking to somebody, I'm trying something new that I learned that I've seen somebody else do, and I'll see if something works for me, right? So this one, I assumed that his wife is helping to make the decision, and I did it like a couple times, and he ended up getting mad. He was like, I'm
I'm
like,
the dog.
all right, I'm like, all right, like, so I'm sure you have to go because he had pictures online, right? So I seen a bunch of like women's shoes in the closet. So I'm like, okay, so I seen the shoes online. Like I
No,
would
my
assume
man
that you
Daryl
would
is a stalker, bro.
I'm like, I would assume that you. I mean, he's a realtor, bro. He has the pictures listed. I see these shoes. Like, I would assume it's your wife living here. It was probably a little awkward. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm like, so do you have to talk to her to make? I'm like, so I'm sure you want to go talk to her, make this decision, figure out like what you would need for a down payment, monthly payments. And I said that something like that a couple times. And he's like, bro, I make the decisions. he's like, well, I don't need to talk to her. So now, but what's really cool about that is, right, I didn't break rapport, right? He's still cool. But now when when I present my solution, and if he tries to tell me, well, I need to go talk to my wife, now I have that in my back pocket. Well, I thought you made the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I thought you don't need to talk to your wife. Right? So right. So exactly. So it's important to bring out your objection, bring out the objections before they come. Address the objections before they come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you'll see, I bet on Daryll's conversations, he doesn't really run into too many objections. He's just freaking controlling the conversation and being a badass.
Bro, it gets to the point where I literally, and I learned this from just the community, right? Pace, Mamadou taught me something like this as well, right? Where if I don't get the objections during the call, which a lot of times, like you said, I don't, right? Because I go through my structure, I have that confidence. I bring the objections up, right? So I'll tell a seller, like if we're talking terms, right, where we'll get the most objections usually. I really won't do this on a cash deal as much, but I'll tell them, right? I'll say, okay, so like you said, we'll give them homework, right? So what do you want monthly? How long do you want these payments for? Right? Think about that. And then also come up with 8 to 10 of your best questions that you could think of. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't come up with 8 to 10, I'll come up with 8 to 10 questions that most of our sellers usually ask us. Right? Usually they'll come up with like 1 or 2 questions. Like, so I'm asking them to bring your objections, right? And then I'll tell them, okay, so most sellers, their main issue is this, right? But this is how we solve it, right? So I'm addressing the objections before we sign the contract, because most of the times they're so comfortable that they don't have any objections right then and there. But
they're just not even that engaged in the situation.
That too.
So getting them to start thinking about those objections that they would have in the future gets them a little bit more engaged.
And it prevents future headaches.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah, I love it, bro.
Oh yeah, bro.
I'd like to ask these people that are watching. I think we got like 13 people watching here. Throw some objections or just some things that you guys have trouble with overcoming in your calls. Like, I'm trying to think back when I was first starting out, what was my biggest thing?
Mike, how fast do you close?
How fast can I close?
Yeah.
When do you need to close?
Yes, sir. I love it. You guys, what Mike just did, this is a great way to overcome objections as well, right? It's called a reversal, right? Answering questions with questions, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine.
Yo, I do this. I do this in regular life, like
all day, bro. All day. So, but you got to think, right? Like, why you have to do it, right? Because you could be answering something that this person has no care about, right? Like if you misunderstand what somebody's asking and you just answer a question, you're wasting your breath, right? So picture like this, right? Imagine you work at a shoe store, Mike, right? I come up to you, I pick up a shoe, right? And I say, hey, what colors do you have this in? Right? The untrained salesperson, they'll say we have red, green, yellow, pink. Oh, well, I wanted orange, right? So I'm gonna put the shoe down and I'm gonna walk away because you didn't say orange, right? But the trained salesperson, they'll say, nice, let me go check. What color were you looking for? Right? So if I go in the back and I see we don't have that color that you're looking for, I'm gonna grab another shoe in that same color and bring it out and see if I can sell you that one. You know?
One thing just came to my mind. When you're preventing the objections, right? Like let's just say you were trying to get the mortgage information, which sometimes could be a personal thing to the seller, right? Like not even mortgage, just when you're asking personal questions, like, right? One way to ease into it is to ask the question, but before you ask the question, state what's going to happen after the question. right? So if I was going to ask Daryll, like if I had a feeling that me asking Daryll his mortgage every single month, his mortgage payments was going to be a little bit too personal at the time, I would say something like, "Hey Daryll, is it cool if I ask you a question really quick? It will make a little bit more sense after I ask a question with a follow up." Yeah, sure. What's that? Exactly what do you owe on the mortgage? He already agreed to answer the question.
Right. Right.
Daryl, is it cool if I ask you a question? It might not make sense now, but it's going to make a little bit more sense with the follow up. Yeah, sure, Mike. What do you got? How much do you owe on the mortgage?
I like that. So, and this is why I love this so much, bro, and like just what we do in the community, because there's so many different styles and so many things that we can learn from. Like, because I wouldn't approach it like that, right? Because I just like to ask, right? I'll just ask, so what do you owe on this thing, right? Like, I'll just make it really simple and really short and get to the point, right? Well, so what do you owe, right? And a lot of times they'll just tell me, um, right? But that's a good point, right? I
It
usually,
goes back to the emotional intelligent thing. Like
yeah,
there's some sellers where
yeah,
like perfect example, that seller that I talked to last night after who was it? Somebody was talking to somebody, then I got on the call after that. She
okay,
was already like from the first call, she was already beat up from the first call, right? So if I was going to ask her a mortgage question or something like that, I would have to ask it in that
for sure,
sense
for sure,
because there was already so much tension there. So sometimes you just got to have emotional intelligence and know the situation and kind of break your way into it.
yeah,
But most of the time, like Daryll said, it's so easy. Just ask. If you're confident throughout your call and you're controlling the call, it's a very simple question. And
and somebody,
if you ask it with confidence, they won't think twice about it. But if you're asking like, well, how much do you owe on the mortgage? Right? They're gonna be like, why the hell are they asking me that?
I think Daniel said it the other day. He said, I think it was Daniel, but he said, most people ask questions and they expect rebuttal. They expect objections. I expect answers.
An
I expect
answer, dog.
an answer to my question.
I like that. Yeah.
So it's just a different mindset. Mike, are you a wholesaler?
I do all the things.
Yes, sir.
You
I
frozen?
like that.
Oh.
Huh?
Yeah, I tell people I do everything.
Yeah, same. I don't run from that, right? I see a lot of people run from the "Are you a wholesaler?" question, and I'll say I got this from Jerry Norton. It's pretty good. I'll say something. Well, I'll say it first. That's an objection that I may ignore, right? I may just label that, right? Since somebody asked me, "Are you a wholesaler?" I may say, "Man, it sounds like you've been talking to a bunch of knuckleheads."
Mm-hmm.
and
I like it.
I'll just be quiet, and then he'll be like, "Oh, yeah." And then freaking no wholesalers keep calling me, blah blah blah. And I'll say, I mean, if you're asking, do I sometimes assign contracts to some of my partners and my friends who do work in the area, then yeah. But my main strategy is to buy and hold. I do some flips here, but if something is, if I don't have the bandwidth for something, I will assign it to one of my friends sometimes. Yeah, I mean, is that going to be an issue? Right, making sure I ask a question at the end, and a lot of times they'll just be like, "Nah, it's not an issue."
One thing I'll use if like and actually, I never really run into this, but one good thing that you can use for the wholesaler situation is saying we do so many deals, we buy so many houses that sometimes our contractors are so busy that we have to
Exactly.
outsource the rehab. That's what I like when a seller is kind of questioning it or something. I just say that we outsource the rehab to another investor because we got so many deals going on.
I like that. I like that.
How can you show me you're legit and you have the money?
What do you need to see?
I love the rebuttal with a question, bro. It's great.
Bro, I'm just answering questions with questions. What do you need to see? And they'll tell me exactly what they need to see, bro. I will act so confused. Yo, so we're working one right now, and this guy's like, we're structuring a deal, bro, a 60-year note, right? 60-year note, no balloon. The guy's like, he's like, well, he's like, I need to know you guys are legit, right? Before I agree to a long-term deal, blah blah blah. We're like, okay, well, what do you need to see? He's like, anything that a bank would ask you for when you're going to get a loan. I'm like, well, we don't go to loans for banks, so I don't know what that is. What exactly do you need to see? And he's like, oh, well, I just need to see your monthly statement of your monthly income statement. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Right? Rather than me going to get all this information and put all this stuff together and POF and all this extra stuff that he may not even care about. Right? So I'm asking the
and then,
question.
by the way, you probably ignore it at the end of the call. You
Yeah.
give them homework and you never send it.
Yeah.
Like people will always ask for an email. Hey, can you send me an email of like your offer or whatever the case is?
Never
And
send
I'll kind of like breeze by it and then give them homework on the next call.
Never send an email, bro. You know what I did though? Actually, in this situation, we figured out. Well, I'm not gonna say it's Andrew, right? But I'm giving him feedback in the chat, and I'm telling him like, yo, there's something going on, right? It's not. It's he doesn't need our credibility because what he's trying to do is sell the note, right? So I'm like, what do you need our credibility for, right? What do you need to know what our LLC is doing? He's like, well, I've never sold a note before. I looked on Google and I seen that note buyers need all of your company information before they buy a note from you. And I'm like, oh, so you've never sold a note, you don't know any note buyers, you found this on Google, is what you're saying. He's like, yes. Okay, so if we bring you a real note buyer who actually buys notes and they tell you that they don't need any of that and they can close the same day as we close on the house, is it like, what else would you need? He's like, I guess I wouldn't need anything, right? So it's about figuring out what that real issue is. When you get an objection, it's usually not what they're directly asking for, right? It's usually they're usually asking a question that's gonna answer another question for them, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love it, bro. Do we have any more questions?
Let's see. To hit on that other one, what you're talking about, the mortgage. A lot of times, what I'll do is I'll tell a third party story as well, right? So if it gets to the point where they're like, "What do you need to know my mortgage for?" Right? Well, Mike, we actually just bought a house last week where Dorothy, she was asking for an oddly specific number. She was asking for like $357,000. And I asked her, like, what? That's a very specific number. Like, what do you need that for? And she ended up telling me that she owes $300,000 and she just wants to walk away with $57,000 because she needed to pay for something. Right. So I told myself I'm going to always ask, what is that mortgage balance? So I know what
I can
you're
do a
looking
better
to get.
job.
Right. So I can do a better job and get you what you're looking for. Oh, that makes sense. I owe 200,000.
Love that.
Yeah.
Do you guys use the tax assessment as the anchor if they don't give you the price? For me, I never really do that. I never really even use all the other properties. Like I know a lot of people will say something like, "We just brought a house down the street for 200. Would you ever entertain something like that?" I that's like a very, very last case scenario for me. I try not to go there. I try to serve and try to figure out exactly their, like I was talking about earlier, their raw net number and why they need it.
Yeah.
And make it make sense to them. And then always think about this. Out of all the sellers that you talk to, think about how important it is to get their number. Why? There's like two big reasons. There's one, because if you just give an offer, if you're just like, oh, I'm a cash buyer, I'll give you an offer and close quickly, you're probably never going to talk to them. That's the first reason. The second reason is there are a ton of cases. We have one going on right now that we have a showing for in an hour where we got their number. Their number was 200,000 is what they thought the property was worth. Retail value, it's worth 340. Do you think we got a smoking deal on this house or what?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So like, think about all these sellers that you talk to, how important it is to get their number.
And it doesn't benefit you to give a number first, like at all.
Doesn't benefit the seller either.
Yeah.
Because I want to buy the house for $10.
Hell yeah, bro.
So I never really use like the other numbers, like the other houses in the neighborhood, or like I bought a house down the street for X, or the tax thing is worth X. I always just try to get their number. Like you should be able to get their number somehow, some way.
When I do anchor, I I subtly anchor and I do it indirectly by telling a third party story. Um, so yeah, we just bought Mike's house last week, where he wanted $7,500 down. We gave that to him, paying him $500 a month for 15 years. Just made those numbers up because they sound good.
Yeah.
Like literally, I just make those numbers up because they sound good, and if they're favorable to me, right? And then I'll tell them, but every seller situation is different, right? So I would ask you, what do you need? What do you need to walk away with today? What do you need in your pocket tomorrow? How long do you want these payments to go out for?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Love it, bro.
Bro, this was good, bro.
Hell yeah. The
This
sales.
felt like a this felt like I like this vibe, bro. I feel like we need to get like a studio and like with a couch or something and like have like everything set up, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, bro, it's coming.
Yeah. Facts. Facts. Heck,
Big things coming.
yes, sir. Bro, I'm super grateful for everybody who tuned in. This is episode freaking 20, baby. If you guys got some value today, make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. Make sure you like this video for us. Subscribe to me and Mike's channels. They're both in the descriptions below. If you're not following us on Instagram, follow us both on Instagram. They're both in the description below. We go live every single Saturday. It's been just me and Mike the past couple weeks, so we'll make sure to get a fire ass guest for next week for y'all. Y'all stay tuned. Y'all look out on our Instagrams for updates. Again, like these videos, subscribe to them, go back and watch them, save them, bookmark them, do whatever you got to do to get this value, get this knowledge, get this sauce.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good weekend. We appreciate y'all.
Peace.
20 weeks strong. We're still going.
Yes, sir. Damn, 20 weeks, bro.